This speech is something I've written for the Humorous Speech Contest, and I don't want this judged as a speech per se, but the content of the speech. I've only just written it, so please don't bear in mind the delivery. It has been said that a speech should be so short that when it's over you can still remember the beginning, so don't forget that. Bonjour, Pangril, Matri, et le monde. Welcome to the weird and wonderful world of Franglais. I'm afraid you'll have to forgive me for reading some of this particular speech from notes. I need these prompts to get my tongue around the French, so to speak, or if you forgive my double entendre, as the French proverb says, if you want to forget something, think of it. You see, there's a trench known as the English Channel on the northern side, or La Mancha, the sleeve, on the southern side. And it depends on which side you live as to whether you view an amalgam of French and English or a bastardisation of French. I'll leave you to decide which side holds which view. Having lived in the United Kingdom for the first 37 years of my life, trips to France were as easy as trips down to Albany, far from Perth. Certainly easier than going to Adelaide. But there's the rub. Whilst you travel vast distances across this magic land down under, in Europe, within a couple of 100 miles, in a different country, and speaking a different language. Vive la différence. Indeed, it's that difference that makes it either so much fun or so bloody annoying. And that is how Franglais came into being, as it consists of either filling in the gaps in one's knowledge of French with English words, or speaking French in such a manner that it would be incomprehensible to a French speaker who does not have a knowledge of English. Thus we have longtemps pas voir, long time no see. Je agree, I agree. I can see you getting to grips with this already. I'll give you a couple of personal examples. During a visit to a gîte at Jonçay, near the central city of Poitiers, we did some food shopping and therefore visited the local supermarché. We picked up our canned foods, our fromage de chèvre, and just needed a pound of mince, or un demi-kilo viande de bœuf haché, as we later discovered. We headed to the butchery counter, and there was all the meat freshly laid out. But hell, no mince. Then, right behind, was a big mincer machine with the equivalent of Ford Mincer written across it. And that was how we came to ask for un demi-kilo de Ford. This caused great hilarity in the supermarché, and afterwards, whenever we went back, we were greeted with, "We have your fresh Ford for you," as they waved bags of mincers. I had a similar experience on a recent visit to Paris. We needed to catch a metro to the station near the Eiffel Tower, Invalides. However, I asked for de billet pour infirmerie. Well, it's medical, isn't it? I was greeted with a blank look and a shout from my dear wife Amanda to say, "It's Invalides, you fool." Actually, talking of Paris reminds me of the story about the wretch who replaced the hunchback of Notre Dame as the bell ringer. This poor fellow had no arms, but rang the bells by butting them. Sure enough, one day he slipped and fell to his death. As the crowd gathered round, they realised that no one knew his name, but suddenly a voice popped up from the back. "I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell." He was actually replaced by his identical twin brother, who used a similar bell ringing technique. And would you believe it, this poor homme also fell to his death. Again the crowd gathered round, and once more they realised they didn't know his name. And sure enough, the same voice in the back declared, "I still don't know his name, but he's a dead ringer for his brother." Of course, many of you will have realised I come from the cultural metropolis known as Bristol in the west of England. The Bristolian accent causes some interesting French pronunciations. For example, open the window is ouvre la fenêtre, and as you may have heard in the past, Bristolians put an L on the end of words ending with a vowel. Thus, this phrase becomes ouvre la fenêtre. To the French, Franglais refers to the use of English words for which has no French equivalents. The most notorious of the anglicisms is le weekend. The term also refers to nouns created from Anglo-Saxon roots, often by adding ing at the end of a popular word. For example, unparking, as a car park, uncamping, campground. A few words that have entered the use in French are derived from English roots, but not found at all in English, such as un relocking, which is a makeover, and un destockage, a clearance sale. The Canadian journalist Carl Mama talks of many Canadians who speak cereal box French as only get to practice it by reading the bilingual text on the back of the box in the morning. It means that when they move to French-speaking centres such as Montreal or Quebec, a few words of French are used in a kind of peace offering to shopkeepers, and they're thinking, look, I'll try speaking as much French as possible, showing you I'm making sufficient effort, and then you can switch over to English fluently after I've finished linguistically self-flagellating myself. Or as another French proverb says, it's all very well in practice, but it will never work in theory. You see, the French sense of humour is no laughing matter. Then of course we come to those phrases which are so familiar to all of us, such as coup de grace, but it's not as many people think a lawnmower. And then there's pas de deux, which is not a father of twins. I think finally, to discover the master of the unintentional faux pas, we need look no further than Del Boy from the English comedy series Only Fools and Horses. In one episode, the Trotter family had gone en masse to France, and Del pondered how he could order duck l'orange in French. It's also been said that even in these troubled times, to make money in Europe, buy a Frenchman for what he's worth and then sell him for what he thinks he's worth. Mon ami, ce vos panache vacances français, n'a pas encore vous savez mon Franglais. Or to translate, my friends, on your next French holiday, do not be afraid because you now know Franglais.